Hey everyone, this is Emily Jane Acree.
And Adam Price.
And you're listening to the Relative Rhythms Podcast.
Today, joining us from Oslo, Norway, is tap dancer, improviser, musician, and recording artist Janne Eraker. Janne creates, composes, and improvises full-time. She performs with her own band, the Janne Eraker Ensemble, her duo, A, with electronic musician Kristoffer Distegard, and the trio One Small Step.
In 2023, she released a groundbreaking tap dance album of duets with 11 different musicians called Movements for Listening, which we talk about at length.
Janne experiments with all sorts of sounds, textures, and technologies in her dancing. She uses her taps as one of the many tools of a sonic painter. We talk a lot about her approach to free group improvisation, creating music without predetermined form, relying on pure feeling and deep listening.
I personally loved connecting with her about her work as a contemporary dancer and how that has affected her approach to tap dance improvisation.
Please welcome to the podcast, Janne Eraker. Janne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We usually like to start our podcast episodes off by asking our guests how they came to their art form and when they kind of decided to pursue it professionally.
I've always loved dancing. My mom, she's still dancing. She used to do folk dances, Balkan folk dance. And I used to join because often there wasn't a babysitter. And been through Balkan dance, jazz dance, show dance, competition dance, all of the things that are available here. And then I wanted to study dance, and I had a hard time choosing between contemporary or what we call modern dance here, slightly different than in the US, and the jazz dance. So I was auditioning all over Europe, and there was one school, one academy that let you have both. And that was in Rotterdam. It's different now, but when I studied there, I could have modern dance as my main subject and have jazz dance as my second subject, sort of a bachelor. Okay. Yeah. And with the jazz dance, it was obligatory to tap dance.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And very different. I
mean, tap dance it's very different in Europe from compared to in the US, the tradition and how it's done in schools, and it's nowhere near as frequent, I guess. It's not like everybody does jazz, tap, and ballet or something here. It's much more rare. And I had my prejudice to that art form. I had seen some funny tap dance and I didn't appreciate.
We'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yeah. But then I had it at the academy, and it was fun to learn. And my teacher was really good at, showing us all the movies and telling us about the hoofers and giving us the information. And then I went to study a year in New York. And I actually signed up for like a visa program, it's called. If you're European, you can get like a visa when you're connected to a school. It was Dance Space, which is not existing anymore in Soho. But then I snuck out, if I had time and money left, I would go up to Broadway Dance Center and take a class. And there I took a class with Michelle Dorrance. And it was like, she's like my age, and she was doing her thing, and I couldn't believe it. I was just
she's so phenomenal,
struck by lightning, and then I sort of understood. So this is what the tap dance really is. But then I was so deep into the other dance that I didn't like switch or anything. I just did it a lot on the side, and back in the Netherlands where I came back there, stayed there, and I trained a lot of tap dance with whoever was passing through, which would be Josh Hilberman, Derek Grant, Barbara Duffy, later also Heather Cornell.
Oh, yeah.
And Roxanne, and plenty of people that, tour around Europe. And I would just train as much as I could. And went to Stockholm Tap Festival, got a lot of information. And also there I saw Michelle again, and she was dancing at the showcase. And I felt like she was sort of channeling God or something. It was insane. I really felt like, it sounds so stupid, but like it was some kind of calling. Like, I can't, this is what it has to be. Like, I can't escape. And then I went to one of those intensives that Heather Cornell used to have in New York. And so that was like 2 weeks of Eddie Brown material and also improvisation with musicians joining us or talking with us. And basically the big breakthrough there was to understand that you don't have to do that much. You better listen. And then I sort of felt like I got permission to do less and still make music. And that sort of opened a whole new door. And then I took it quite seriously. And then I eventually stopped with all the other dancing and just focused on the tap dance for a long time. Yeah. Wow. And then I got in 2015, I got a big stipend from Norway, and then I could stop all my teaching jobs, even though I love to teach, but I got sort of time off for 3 years. So then I really pursued all my projects and ideas, and I approached people that had never met me, and I was like, I want to work with you. Can I work for free? Can we do this? Can we do that? And awesome. Since then, I've just been generating work for myself or work with others. Yeah, it's been, the stipend was really, really a big game changer because the projects I could really do my work with these projects and the training and all the stuff you have to do to get something on its legs. And I wasn't held back by having to be somewhere Tuesday at 6:00 and Thursday at 5:00. Like those regular things that just break it could be much more like weeks abroad or whatever was needed to do my work. And that's that's still what I'm doing.
When did you move to Oslo?
I moved back here with my partner and my baby in 2017. Yeah. So like 7 years ago about. Yeah, it's been cool. I was in the Netherlands for 17 years, or actually 1 year in New York, but the other 16 years were in the Netherlands, and I feel really at home in the Netherlands. I have all my grown-up friends there. But I got a baby, and then I got some work in Norway, and I have my family in Norway, my parents. Okay. And and the working conditions for artists, I mean, it's not like it's easy or anything, but I have gotten a lot of support from the Arts Council here and the other funds.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't have been able to do almost like anything without it. It's been really, really, really good. And in the Netherlands, I don't know how aware you are about like European politics and stuff, but the Netherlands is a very, very culturally rich country. From ages. I have Norway is like nothing compared to the Netherlands in amounts of like museums and famous painters or breakthrough art stuff. I mean, like it's too big to talk about, but that's the whole reason why there's so many great dance academies in the Netherlands, is because in the 70s and 80s, all of the big ballet and contemporary companies were established. And so it's a tiny country in Europe where all people from all over the world go to the Netherlands to study, I don't know, art, design, dance, music. You know, Amsterdam used to be the capital for improvisation. You know, but then they got a right-wing government that managed to sort of push through the slogan that art is actually just a hobby and everybody should just take care of their own hobbies and that shouldn't be funded. And they managed to cut, in 2013, they cut down 40% of the overall national budget for all the arts. And so all of it's simply insane. They were trying to save costs, but then the year after they had so many costs in saving all the people who were out of jobs that it didn't even make a difference for the economy.
Right.
So, but all of the dance houses and many theaters and many ensembles like Schönberg Ensemble or specific theater mime ensemble, like so many had to fold, and many people like me who had come there to enjoy and learn and be a part of this vibrant scene were leaving it. So when I got my baby and I started to get funding from Norway, it was a simple choice.
Yeah, I would love to talk to you a lot about that, but arts and politics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that could be a whole nother episode.
That could be a whole nother.
Yeah, definitely.
But I wanted to talk to you about your recordings and your work. You've collaborated with a lot of very different artists, and you also have this project called One Small Step. Can you explain what that project is? Is that like a solid fixed band that you guys tour with, or?
Yeah, One Small Step is a band. I think we've been together for a long, closer to 10 years now.
Oh, wow.
More actually. But all of us have plenty of projects.
Sure.
Last time we played together was July last year.
Okay.
I mean, it's not true. They played at my release concert. We had a 10-minute slot in my release concert,
Nice.
which was a huge deal, that thing. We do have an album too with One Small Step.
Yeah, I've heard it. It's great.
Yeah.
With One Small Step and with your other collaborations, how much of it is collective improvisation and how much is scripted or choreographed?
With One Small Step, it's absolutely all improv. Okay. But we do have we have cultivated some type of reference. So we've been improvising a lot without an audience as well before. Like we have had plenty of sessions, and then we have recorded it and listened back to it together. So we don't say like, oh, I don't want you to do that. You just broke the cool groove or whatever. Or like, you don't get criticism, but we just
right.
we do reflect. We listen and we'll be like, oh, this is such a cool part. I didn't know you were doing that. Oh, okay. Or, oh, this part could go on a little bit longer. That would have been cool. Or just reflecting together and getting an understanding of what everybody's sort of feeling or what kind of an intention we have. So we do set intentions, for example, like let's do a stretch where we deliberately do not come to the same groove ever, or
interesting.
Let's try to take turns, or let's try to really harmonize, or actually the first time we played together, Vegard and Roger and myself, Heather Cornell was in Oslo to teach a workshop, and she brought Thomas Waddleton, or he has a new name now, I think, Moon, the tap dancer from Australia with the banjo.
Okay.
They were here, and I organized an improvised concert with Roger, and then we needed one more melodic instrument, we thought, and that's how, I already knew Vegard, and I asked him to come along. And then with Heather and Thomas, we were like, okay, let's improvise a stretch in front of an audience without any proper rehearsal at all, really. This is going to be the one where we make it, we have to like boil something, or this is the one where we keep taking turns, and we were, it's not anywhere near a score or anything, but we had some kind of themes. And I remember looking at each other and Heather also being like, I don't know about that. Okay, well, okay, cool. And what do you mean? I don't know what I mean, but let's do this. And people are just so sporty and cool. So it was a great experience. It was very exciting.
Cool.
That's how we've been going about it. Yes.
Wow. So every single instrument fully improvised.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, this is the one small step trio, and then there's plenty of other collaborations, and then on the record, the new one, the movements for listening, there is a composed.
I love that one.
Oh, thank you. There's one song that's really composed, and then there's actually two that are really composed, and one that has like a set bass line, and everything else we sort of cut and paste and composed in the studio later. And
interesting.
But most of the tracks are improvised, and then we have just decided either to use the whole thing or cut it at some point, like just because I couldn't fit 10 records.
Sure.
It was a limit to the minutes. So
Right.
yeah, it's a lot of improvisation. I love to improvise.
Wow, that is like so incredible and foreign to me.
Yeah.
I know for the movements for listening, it was recorded in 10 different locations with like 11 different musicians. So did you travel to your collaborators and record with them, or how did you create that?
So when the pandemic hit, there was this, like, of course, all my work was canceled. And then there was this call or the Arts Council were like, okay, guys, if you have any good ideas for a Corona project, bring it. They had a call for those projects that you would be able to do in that time. And so and that's why I at all started the album. I said, okay, well, I don't need an audience for a recording, so I'll do a recording. At that point, we could be 5 people in a room here. Of course, that changed a lot, but there was a period of 5 people. And I was like, okay, so me, 1 or 2 musicians, camera guy, a sound person, camera person.
Right.
And I was like, that's 5 people. Okay. And they all have to be Oslo-based because nobody can travel. And we couldn't even travel between, like, through the country at some point. Like, you couldn't go to the next, municipality, because there was some shit going on. So all the musicians are Oslo-based, and all the locations are here, all different locations. And I spent a year doing the recordings. So like one by one, it was such a nice thing to do. Such a nice, I guess I almost like that part of the work the most, when you meet your collaborators, your friends, and you make something. There's nothing, and then you make something, and it's just such a enjoyable moment when something is created, right?
I'm really interested in your process, because it's not just the one small step group. You said most of your recordings have been fully improvised.
This blows my mind, honestly.
Yeah, I should be precise. Maybe it's like 6 out of 10.
Okay.
But yeah.
How do you approach group improvisation? Like, just can you just walk us through your thought process from like beginning to end?
Yeah, that's a good or very relevant question right now, because of the concept of this project, we are a maximum of 3 people, right? All of the recordings, except for the one with One Small Step, are just duos. And One Small Step I played with for so long that that I can deal with the fact that we're 3. We can all deal with the fact that we're more than 2 or more than 1. I was rehearsing with my new group the previous week, and we're 4 people, and it's just such a huge step forward, and like, oh my God, so much more to deal with. So I'm in the middle of dealing with that right now. how to sort of stay calm, how to stay focused, what to think, if I should I lead the band more, should I let go more, should I leave more space, all of that, because in all these recordings from the album, that's not really an issue, say.
Right.
It's much more direct, since it's so sort of, we're simply two people. So
right.
But so the first one, it's Chulas Fronteras with Knut Reiersrud, who's like a famous guitarist here in Norway, blues guitarist, and he is one of the collaborators on this album who was the most interested in sort of laying the bricks for the recording. So I met him, I came to his home and we jammed a little bit. And then he was like, what about this one? And then he just starts the dun, 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 dun. He just starts this bass line, and I'm like, that's fantastic. Let's take that one. And that was that. Then it was decided, and I got a little iPhone recording, and it's in 5, so it's a little bit challenging. Right. And then we met in the church, actually right next door here, huge church. So the way of recording this song was new to me, but old to him, familiar to musicians, but unfamiliar to me. So he was like, let me first play the bass line. And just to make sure that that it was possible to cut and edit later, he had a click on his ear. He had a metronome on his ear. And he played that for like a minute until he was happy with it. And then he had the sound guy loop it, so it became like 8 minutes. And then I got it through the headphones on my ears. And Knut, this famous guitar player, holds my cable in the air, so it's not like dangling on the floor, because it would make sound for the, So he's like holding that, and then it's like, it's your turn, Janne. There you go. And so I heard his groove, and that's beautiful, and I tried not to be too shy about being the only one dancing in this huge church. 3 guys looking, the camera guy, the sound guy, and Knut. And I was like, okay. And then I just improvised for like 8 minutes.
Wow.
And it was all recorded. And Knut was like, yeah, and then later you just pick out what you like, and that's what we use. I'm like, okay.
Oh, interesting.
Which is very, very, very different from One Small Step, where everything happens at the same time.
Right.
And you react
in time.
Yeah. And not necessarily in time either, because One Small Step we don't work with a metronome. Right. Anyone can change the beat at any time. There's no form. Right. There's no song that we have agreed on before.
All happening simultaneously.
Yes, and everything goes into all the microphones at the same time. But so with the Knut and this bass line, that was so challenging for me, because then I could not like zone in and just try to connect and sort of try to be true to what's happening and react and work with what's going on. But it was like, okay, you have this thing on your ear now, and now you do something, you're supposed to do something great, something fantastic with it. Right. It's like, okay.
No pressure.
Yeah, right. And then we with Knut, we took several bits, and we also had a bit that we improvised together. And then we were like talking, in between the bits. It was like, okay, so what does this song need? Like, what kind of an ending? And he pulled out a fiddle and he started playing a fiddle, and I was like, wow, that's beautiful. And then I was like, okay, how can I contribute to this? And I tried tap dancing softly on the church floor. I mean, it's a wooden floor, but it was pretty loud acoustics. Yeah. And then I heard it back, and I was like, no, it's way too hard, and it's not appropriate. And so I did a barefoot sand dance to this click and to this groove. And then we met in the studio of the sound technician, and we had listened to all the parts beforehand, of course. And we were like, we want this bit, we want that bit, it's connecting like this.
Wow.
And then, 2 hours later, it was a 6-minute song. And that was, to me, that was one of the most impressive experiences, because I was almost a bit shocked how we are making music.
Yeah.
Because it's so opposite from this sort of real-time improv that I'm used to.
Right. That's really interesting, because I feel like a lot of musicians, especially like indie and pop musicians, are more used to that kind of overdubbing process, and that's kind of just like normal for them. And a lot of musicians get terrified to step into like a free collective improvisation like world. And it's interesting that that's just where you feel most comfortable in.
Yeah. But then also I have to also mention this, because I had money for this project. I had money to pay everyone for a week of work.
Wow.
And
awesome.
And so cool. That means that I had a lot of luxury to be like, I don't know how this works. Let's do it 20 times. And some of these people are, all of them are sort of way beyond, like they have 10 more years at least, and some of them like 20 than me. Like, so I feel like I have so much to learn from everyone. And I try to also be, how do you say, immediately understand, okay, this musician wants to work like this. And this person wants to work like this. Okay, I can do that. And I would just be like, yes to everything. So if then with the noise guy, with Harald, we just improvised for like 3 or 4 days straight, like from 10 to 4 every day. Like, and most of it's recorded. It's so there's like a ridiculous amount of recordings. Interestingly, there we chose like our top 3 favorites, and then picked one that I thought would be on the album. And then half a year later, when all of the other recordings sort of lined up, we listened back to the noise recording and we're like, this is not at all what we want to have on the record. But then we had so much more material, so we just went back and we're like, what about number 1? What about number 2? What about number 8? Like, and then we chose a different one, and we even mashed 2 together.
When you're collaborating and improvising with another musician, how do you communicate? Like for instance, your One Small Step group, there's 3 different musicians collectively improvising everything at the same time. How do you communicate, if at all, like visually or auditorily, to create something cohesive? Or is it just like everyone crosses their fingers and prays and hopes it all comes out?
I see what you're asking. I understand what you're saying. There's a lot of cliches coming now, but like we are really, really listening to each other.
Yeah.
And we are trying to make really strong choices, and to stick to our choices as well. So someone presents an idea, and it can happen that more people accidentally, or like we all start at the same time and there are more ideas in the room immediately. And then you immediately decide if you continue your ideas and see how they merge or work together or work against each other, or you immediately deal with the other idea that's in the room. And it was interesting because, another cliche would be that everybody just starts really softly and builds up really slowly. So in the meantime, you can like, what's happening here? What's happening there? Okay, I'll do this. You'll do this. Okay, now now this is happening. Oh, it's becoming this now. Okay. And then you develop, and then 5 minutes later, it's like, oh, now we made this. But for example, with Harald, the noise guy, he really doesn't like it when you're like sneaking in and sneaking out again, just because you're a bit, worried or trying not to make mistakes. He always he plays a lot like a bulldozer of some sort, like just like it's on and then it's off and then it's on again and then it's
right.
off and then and then you deal with how that like with the tap. Often with him I will drown a bit, but then when he stops I'm all there, and then
right.
Interesting.
And then there's, you know, there's so many choices you can make to attach yourself to another person's idea, or to amplify another person's idea, or to counter it, or to sort of decorate it with something. And there's so many parameters in how you can use your sound. So for example, I have different floors, different boards. I have a water container. I have sand. I have loose taps. I have like plenty of it's like my arsenal of stuff. And
sound.
Yeah. So if I am not heard with my tap, I will start using my hands, or I will play the water because I know that, or I will play the metal because I know that can match. Then I can sort of join the ride still, or whatever, if I want to. Like, so,
right.
So there's a lot of choices to be made in which texture and which sound I can bring in. And that's for everyone, of course, but that's a big part of this project. But all of us, everybody who I'm improvising with makes these choices, right? And with Juliana, the If You Find Yourself Falling dive, we recorded like, I don't know, 10 rounds of 7 minutes, and we would reuse the material. So, but I would never know exactly what she would be doing, if she, this round would do the poem or would sing this African thing, or if, and I also wouldn't decide beforehand if I'm doing triplets or whatever, but we would keep sort of repeating or keep doing 7 minutes. And so the recordings they're all different, but it's the same material being worked on. Yeah. So, and I really enjoy that. It's not like, oh, we have one chance to make it perfect, and then you have all this like, oh, what do we choose? It's more like, okay, we go again.
This is the Relative Rhythms podcast, and you're listening to our conversation with Janne Eraker. This podcast is a labor of love, and we are currently supported entirely by our listeners. If you like what you hear, you can help support our work by subscribing to our Patreon. By doing so, you can gain full access to all of our uncut interviews and extra content. You can sign up at patreon.com/relativerhythms. You can also support us by rating and leaving us a review wherever you are listening, and by following us on all the socials at Relative Rhythms. Thank you again to all of our Patreon supporters, and now back to our conversation with Janne.
It's interesting to me, as you were talking, I kind of had this visual, which this never came to me before, and as an idea for improvisation within tap dance, but I also have a little bit of a modern dance background as well, and so I'm very comfortable improvising and like contact improvising with other dancers in a modern dance setting. And I never thought of improvising as a tap dancer with that idea of like contact improv. But the way you were speaking about it, I was like, oh, it's just contact improv. Like that's what it is. Like you're so connected, even though maybe not physically, that it doesn't matter, and you can respond. Obviously you're doing it musically with your tap shoes or whatever instruments you're using, but this idea of that contact improv, musical contact improv, it came to me. I never thought of it before, but the way you described it, it like perfectly fit into like my modern dance brain.
That's so true.
Which is really cool.
I resonate a lot with what you're saying. my background was also modern dance, and I always loved improvising in modern dance. Like that was just like fun. I wouldn't understand why other people would be like, oh, it's scary, I want to do it perfect, I don't know. Like I would be like, what are you talking about? This is just fun. You put on the music and you go. Like and then when I started taking tap dance seriously, I took a lot of classes with Barbara Duffy. Mm-hmm. And I had seen Michelle, and I had seen people improvise, and I knew like that must be freedom, that must be the best thing in life, to be free like that. And I was petrified. I was scared to death for like at least 2 years. And I remember standing in class, have you taken class with Barbara Duffy?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So she's like, you're going to have to work on this, or now it's your turn to do it. Like she will be like telling you how it is and giving you challenges. And I was just freaking out in one of those classes in Amsterdam. I was like, ah! And she was like, what are you afraid of? And I was like, I don't know, maybe I make a mistake. It was horrible, because I knew that it's only in your mind, of course, but like it was so hard for me to get over the fact that I heard myself improvising, as opposed to, you don't see yourself when you do modern dance improvising. So you can close your eyes and just be in yourself, right? So with tap dance, hearing your sound and being so confronted with how bad it is, being like, oh my god. And for me, besides that moment in Heather Cornell's intensive, where we were doing like very, very little, and I was like, oh, it's music, I'm just doing like step heel, and now it's already music. Like realizing that there's so little you have to do to make tap dance really be something musical. So it's not depending on whether or not you know your pullbacks or anything. Like it's just any sound is a good sound in that sense. And then I played a lot. I had my ex-boyfriend, he's a drummer. He was very encouraging to me. And he played with a bass player that I also played with a lot. Like we have had plenty of concerts, and he had a way of asking me to do stuff and then sort of letting me just try it. And his attitude, shout out to Bruno. I love Bruno. He's like my brother. His attitude was like, of course you can do this. Like the question wasn't even in the room or anything. And so by working with this one person, of course, he's also amazing. He has amazing groove. He does great stuff. But it's this person that's next to me, and he's just letting me try. And he believes something of me that I don't know yet. And it's really, it's like love, It's such a powerful thing. And it was really the big door opener to like, oh, okay, this is like something we can do. And you support me and I support you. And now we do this together and we have fun. And it's not at all like, oh my God, I have to do something great now they're watching, or I have to show that I'm not a fake tap dancer or something. Like all of that was not even anymore, because it was just me and him doing our thing, and people would enjoy watching, and we would enjoy playing. And so having contact with Bruno, musical contact, took away all my worries and made it possible to just actually focus on the content of what you're doing, which is what I think you probably should do when you're doing something. Like you should be interested in what you're doing, right? And not in all the other thoughts and the devil on your shoulder and all of that. So, and from that moment on, I knew that, I need a partner. Like I need someone. And my next problem was like, why should I ever take a solo? Like, a solo makes no sense. Where's my contact point? Who's my contact partner? Who am I sensing when I'm only hearing myself? And that's taken me a lot of time. Like I have had years thinking like, I honestly think there's no reason to solo. Why would you ever need to solo? Like it's pointless. And it's like, have no desire for it. I have no, like, then I would be alone, and I don't want to be alone. I want to be together. But I'm okay now.
I resonate with that. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a big theme. But it's so funny that you say contact, because, of course, the reason why we connect when we make music is because we sense each other. We hear each other with our ears. And when you dance, and if you close your eyes and you're alone, you can just sort of shut off the world. But if you are doing contact improvisation, you are sensing someone and you can focus on that. So it's such a good comparison.
Thinking about it that way. And I mean, it's really just the way you explained it. I was like, oh, light bulb moment. It takes away, I feel like, so many pressures of, you have to, even say if you're like playing a set tune, it feels like you have to stick to this, right? Like very rigid boundary, which is not the case, but it sometimes feels that way, right? But the way you're explaining it, I mean, just, I'm like, this makes sense. That makes sense.
Cool. I guess we really come from the same background, and going into the tap dance, and I know exactly how that feels. And for me, a big thing has been to break the sort of aesthetics of things. So with Bruno, the bass player that I played, my first partner, he would ask me to be like, we would play and he would be like, this is my groove, I play something cool. And then he's just like, do whatever you feel like fits. And then we would do that. And then he would give me a sign and he's like, now we do a break or a bridge or something, and you're going to tap as if you're falling down the stairs. I'm like, okay. And then just like, to not just a break like in the musical sense, but to just break something. We had a show or a concert where I would bring boards that I could trash, that I could put my foot through in the end, like very thin cardboard type of wood. And to do this rock thing of breaking your instrument during the concert.
Right. Like the smashing the guitar.
Smashing and stepping through it and, dragging it. And so it was a part of the game with him to also use the ugly, wrong, distorted things, sounds, musics, say. And that was so liberating. So even today, if I'm in like some kind of groove, and just this morning I was training and we were doing lots of art pepper swing stuff. Nice. And if there's anything that's like, gotta shake this off, I will just be like tap dancing something fast and ugly, and then coming back to the beat after. And I don't mean this like, I'm trying a wing, but it's not sounding good. I mean like proper like, brrr, bam, 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 okay, I'm back. And then, and sometimes that's even like sometimes that even is a thing I would do on stage on purpose because I want the sound of that. But it took me a long time to allow myself to do it. And it was very freeing. And this collaboration with the noise guy, and he asked me to do noise. I don't know how familiar you are with noise music, but like really loud electronic noise. So he would set up like 10 microphones for me, and I would have plenty of metal and wood and stuff that's like loud stuff. And we would just be sort of screaming with my taps for like 30, 40 minutes. Like, and I was so scared, and I didn't invite any tap dancers to that concert. It was a sold out concert and the people loved it, but there were no tap dancers in the audience. And I was just like, I want to step over this limit for myself, and I can't have a judging audience at the same time. It's not like I will do this in my own way. And now I'm not shy about it anymore, but I've done many such experiments. That's what I want to do. I want to keep pushing the limits. And so doing that has also freed up the improv, if you understand what I'm saying, like, because I'm not anymore busy with doing it perfectly, doing it nice, doing it like some master used to do it or anything. Like I'm not trying to fulfill anyone's expectations in those ways.
Right.
So, and there's a lot of, also in all of these recordings on the album, there's many moments when I'm doing stuff where I don't know what I'm doing. Like, and I allow myself to not know. I'm not saying that I know what I'm doing. I'm saying, I want to try this. I want to try this. I want to map this out. You ask me something, I will do it. Like, it's just, because I know that that's where my growth is going to be. This other song, Cute, with the piano player, that's much more set. And here I went through a whole much longer process of choreographing, practicing, letting it go, taking it back, finding variations. Because, you know, the standard Cute, right? Boom, boom, like this. I actually never really liked that song, but then
the truth comes out.
But that's because the musicians leave you, the tap dancer, alone for so many breaks in a row, and it's like, I don't want to be alone. I want to play together, right? So, but David, it was in the middle of one of the lockdowns, and I was like, can I practice something for when we record something in the future? And he just, on the hour, he just redid Cute in 5 and sent me this MIDI recording of it, and it broke my brain. It took me so long to get into it because it has such long breaks, and it's in 5, so I have no natural feeling of where the 1 is in those breaks. So a week later, he sent me another version, the same thing, but he just played it again, but then with a metronome on the 2 and the 4, even though it's in 5.
Right.
But anyway, so I practiced a lot. I was just standing in the studio like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, and I got, you know, it was such a hard lesson in how to stay in time, because the breaks are so long and you get eager, and it starts on the offbeat every time. Like, anyway, it's super hard work. And so I spent for sure like half a year just trying to feel the groove, flapping around in the studio, flap, 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 flap.
Okay.
And changing with some snaps, flap, 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 like just that. And then I started to take some very, you know, the first time step and the Hoofer time step and some regular time steps, and changing them to a 5, making like, I don't know, 4 or 5 different versions of time steps that I would then do, and see if I could still like actually feel time and keep that going in all the breaks and all of that. But then he recorded Cute with a drummer in like a blazing speed, and he told me, he's like, oh yeah, by the way, it's also on this record. And I heard this drummer do that song, and I was like, oh my god, how am I going to compare? You know, it's just because this drummer is just you know, fantastic. He can do the groove, be totally relaxed in the groove, and make lots of syncopations and cool breaks, and come back in. And it's just. And so I called the drummer friend, and I was like, yeah, can you please help me? And yeah, okay, this gets a bit too nerdy now, but anyway, I got a lot of help out of the drummer. And then when we recorded it 12 or 13 times in a row. Wow. In the end, we were actually done, and he said, let's just do one more, but let's just do it as fast as we can. And I was like, okay. So just for fun, we did like just way too fast, but on a quite a slippery floor, so I wasn't stuck on the floor. That was good. And many of my sounds, you can't hear them because it's just too fast. I mean, sort of in the air, or it's not being articulated that well, but that's the recording that's on the album.
Wow.
Because when we listen back to all the recordings, it generates the most feeling when I listen. And so then we picked it, and I sent it to the drummer. I'm like, listen, it's not really clean. What do you think? Like, which one should we take? Should we take the clean one that's a bit slower, where everything sounds groovy and sort of cool? Or what about this crazy one? And he's like, yeah, the latter. Like, that's, and I'm like, are you sure? Because I think it sounds a bit messy, or there's one point where there's a syncopation. I don't know if that belongs there. Like, and he was like, no, that's, it's alive. And that's, for him, it was a good thing. So then we decided to go with that choice, which is, it's a bit representative, I guess, of how I work. Like I often put out stuff that's not perfect, or like maybe stuff that's not like really, really good or anything. Like I prefer the experiment. I prefer the sort of the real thing. Yeah. The sort of honest or true thing. And then sometimes it's a bit embarrassing, and I'm shy to look back on things I have done. But I still choose to work like this, because if I would wait for things to be great before I sort of expose them, I wouldn't get anywhere. Yeah. And it's cool if other people work like this. I'm not judging other people for, making something excellent before they show themselves. But I don't have time for that. I want to keep moving forwards, and I'm okay to make a fool of myself. Of course, I wanted some. I would want to get, like, I want my peers or the masters that I have in my life, I want them to sort of bless me. But at the same time, I don't have time to wait for that. So it's like, I'm just going to do it like this. And if people think it's weird or not the way it used to be done or whatever, it's okay. So that's fine.
Yeah, that's freedom, I think, right? Like you were saying from before, even when you were first coming to tap dance, you say you saw Michelle or other inspirations, and you thought it was freedom. And I think it seems, at least from this conversation, that you've gotten to that point of feeling like you have that freedom, and the freedom to be messy, and the freedom to share, and that's beautiful and inspiring. So,
oh, thanks. Yeah, well, it's freedom, but it's also like the potential for art. That's where it is. The potential for new stuff, for new discoveries is there, and I just love it when that's happening, when it's possible. And if that means that I'll fall on stage, or I'll take that.
Beautifully put. And I'm curious, Janne, do you consider yourself a dancer, or do you consider yourself a musician, or both?
I would say both. Yeah. I feel like that question comes up a lot because when you apply for funding, you apply for funding for musicians or for dancers. Right. Like it's rarely the same, or it's often split, and then you have to explain yourself. Yeah, but I am a musician because see, I'm recording, and then the commission will be like, no, but you're a tap dancer, so you don't belong here, or so
there's the politics again.
There's lots of and many people get quite busy with that question. So what do you do? Like what are you doing? And I feel like it's maybe better to just say that I'm an artist. And I just try to use whatever is at my disposal and whatever I need to use for what I'm doing now. So when I'm on stage, improvise or tap dancing as music, I'm very aware that people see me. I mean, and I'm aware of my own body. So, you know, like you, Emily, like if you have a dance education, it's not something you just undo, or like you have a certain training, and that's cool because that makes a lot of things accessible to you. Like you can stand there and you can know that you're on your left foot and that you maybe should relax your right arm now. Like you can know that because you feel stuff from the inside more than someone who's maybe not a dancer. So that awareness is there. And I'm very aware also of all the culture around this, like this tap dancer scene culture about not having any form in your body to sort of demonstrate how you're definitely not a dancer, but a musician. Or this, I had it several times, people asking me to like put my legs closer because I'm a woman, I should be you know, also like people have opinions about how you look, you know. But anyway, I love to use my body when I make music as a tap dancer or with my hands or whatever I'm producing at the moment, sound wise. I can do it with a minimal amount of, like, with the most functional, minimal economic approach. And to, you know, so you leave your body alone and you just do exactly what you need to do to make that sound. If that's a flap or it's a stamp or it's sliding along the floor, whatever it is. But sometimes, or a lot of times, I will use my body way more than I need because it's a way to connect with the music even more, to connect with myself, to connect with the space, to feel the music in my whole body. And that informs me when I then make music. Anyway, so I feel like the dance is just another tool, and you can also use it to communicate to the audience or not. Like you can lift your leg and make like anticipation about what is gonna come, just like a drummer would, or a guitar player. Like you can give anticipation about what's coming with your body, and that can be really fun to play with, or to the other musicians. You know, there's lots of communication to do there. And so I would say both.
I love that. That was beautifully put. Janne, thank you so much. This is awesome.
Well, thank you guys.
You've been listening to our conversation with Janne Eraker. You can find more about Janne on her website at janneeraker.com and follow her on the socials at Janne Eraker. That's JANNEERAKER. We're excited to announce that Janne just released another single with Christopher Lislegard and their electronic duo Oy, that's O-Y, entitled The Foyer. And they are releasing their first album entitled Live this Friday, November 22nd. Be sure to check it out wherever you get your music.
If you liked our conversation today, please follow and leave a rating or review wherever you are listening. If you'd like to support our work, you can join us at patreon.com/relative rhythms, where you can support our work at any tier and gain access to our full uncut episodes. Our opening theme for The Love of It was composed by Adam.
Our mid-roll music was If You Find Yourself Falling, Dive by Janne Eraker and Juliana Venter. Our outro music is Chulas Fronteras by Janne Eraker and Knut Reiersrud, both off of her album Movements for Listening.
Don't forget to follow us on all the socials at Relative Rhythms, and feel free to send us a message through our website, relativerhythms.com.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next episode.